Welcome, everybody, to the Broker Life podcast. This channel is dedicated to give you the greater insights into the real estate and mortgage industry in Canada by diving deep into the minds of the professionals who live and work it every day. Today's guest is Tiffany Pedersen, Director for Western Canada at Strive Capital. Tiffany has been with Strive for just over a year and has over 15 years of experience in the lending and broker space, including time with Street Capital and the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association. Welcome, Tiffany.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is exciting. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. Let's dive right in. First question I have for you is, who is Strive Capital?
So Strive is what's known as a mortgage finance company. So we launched this into the space about a year and a half ago. So June 2021, we started out in Eastern Canada. Our head office is located in Toronto. And then we slowly and very thoughtfully onboarded key brokerages across the country. So not everybody obviously is onboarded. Those brokers who have been onboarded are some of the bigger or more experienced brokerages in the country. So we were happy to welcome Mortgage Connection in February of last year to our core broker group.
Okay, so Strive is not like a bank.
Strive is not like a bank. I use this analogy to people who I'm describing what I do for a living because it's difficult to understand, like, what is a broker? What is a bank? Like, why do I go to a broker? What's a mortgage finance company? Like, why can't I walk into a branch? So I've made up my own analogy and I call it the ketchup analogy. So when you go grocery shopping and you're looking at varieties of ketchup on the shelf, you're seeing Heinz, you're seeing French's, and then you've got these like no-name ketchups, or maybe even some more like boutique, fancy, like spicy curry ketchups and things like that. There's a lot of variety out there for people, and not are all suited for all individuals. Same thing with ketchup, and same thing with a mortgage finance company. So there are only so many ketchup makers in the world, right? The general rule of thumb is when you're searching for Heinz or French's, you're paying for a brand name. There's a reason why you know who they are. It's because they spend money on advertising. They have bricks and mortar, meaning they have offices. So like comparing that to a bank, you've got your TDs, your Scotias, your HSBCs, your Bank of Montreal, top five. You know who they are because they're paying for you to know who they are. That's advertising. That's same as French's ketchup. So a mortgage finance company is that no-name ketchup. So it's the same ketchup in the bottle because French's and Heinz is one of the major distributors and makers of ketchup. But so it might be a Heinz ketchup in the bottle, but it's branded as no name. So that's kind of what a mortgage finance company is. Our investors behind the scenes, a lot of these times are the big five banks and other major corporations that fund mortgage finance companies. But we are able to pass the cost savings on not advertising and having bricks and mortar for people to walk in and talk to us and people sitting at teller counters. Instead, we put that money into the broker industry. We also have cheaper options for clients when they're looking for financing. So when you go to exit a mortgage, a penalty is something that you should definitely consider looking at when you're comparing different products. Well, a mortgage finance company like Strive has way cheaper penalty options if for whatever reason something happens in your life where you have to break your mortgage early. So that's kind of an advantage of dealing with your no-name ketchup and dealing with a mortgage broker to be able to get you into a better suited product than you walking into a bank or buying that Heinz ketchup. So that's what I call the ketchup analogy and describing kind of who we are on the shelf of available products.
I absolutely love that. That's so well put and so well explained. So sometimes people don't understand the difference, and I love that you make it easy for people to understand. Okay, so that's Strive. Now, what exactly do you do at Strive?
So I am the director of Western Canada sales. So I get the privilege of working with mortgage brokers across the Western Canada to strategize as to why you should use our mortgage finance company or bank and our product offerings comparative to others in the market. So it's a way for me to introduce and train mortgage brokers across Western Canada as to what we do, why you should sell our products comparative to others. Now, not every mortgage product is suited for every single person. That's why it's really important to see a mortgage broker for your options, because if you walk into a bank, you're only getting their available products. So their rates might be good, but at the end of the day, their products might not necessarily be suited for you. So if you're looking at a 5-year fixed, but you're a single woman buying your first condo, well, maybe if you get married, 2 or 3 years later and you're deciding to have kids, that 1-bedroom condo is no longer might might not be suited for your future needs. So it's talking to a mortgage broker, understanding what your life goals are, making sure that you've got the best available mortgage products so you can have those flexibilities of exiting those terms early, or flexibilities of turning it into something else, or layering a line of credit. All those types of things are really important to get that advice. So I am out there spreading the word about who Strive is and why you should work with us as partners.
And people don't see this behind the scenes, but it's brokers like myself who are leaning heavily on people like you to help us fully understand all the products, the policies, and all the benefits of a company like Strive. And really, this hits home specifically for me because I was not sure if you know this, but I worked for CIBC for 10 years. Um,
Okay.
and I was a mortgage specialist for 8 of those years. So really heavy into the bank product, pushing their product. And, as a professional for 10 years or, someone who worked for the bank, I didn't even know that there was MFCs. I didn't even know there was other lenders out there outside of the big five. I heard of credit unions, but like there's just a different mentality when you're working for a big company. And I was pretty ingrained. I mean, 10 years with any company is a long time. So, I knew a lot of the different areas of the business and met a lot of different people, did a bunch of different trips with people. And I still just didn't discover or even think about what it would be like to be in the broker space. And it wasn't until I joined, I guess this is my 5th year now, that it's like the light bulb went off and it was like, oh my God, I can't believe there's all these other choices. And you spoke so great about it in the form of not just different products, but penalty structures are different, prepayments are different. And at the end of the day, it's just choice, right? And it's so nice to have choice, and it's so nice to have you and Strive as one of the choices. So I love that. I want to ask you about what you like about your job, and I know there's probably a million things, but I also want to tie that into your time at Street Capital, because you were there, I think, like 8 years or so, or 10 years as well.
I was one of the originals at Street Capital. So Street Capital is also another mortgage finance company that was founded essentially in 2007. 2008, they went to the A side of business. They were originally supposed to be an alternative type lender, but obviously 2008 happened in the market. So they quickly transitioned to be a mortgage finance company offering A products. So B-rated products were a thing of their past. I was there from 2008 until 2014. So I was there for a good portion of time.
Wow. So I was at CIBC from 2008 to 2018. Yeah. So similar time. So what do you like most about your job, and sort of how does that different from your time at Street Capital?
Well, so I've held various roles across the community because I've been around for quite some time. I was in the broker space and I was on the lender side. I worked for the Mortgage Brokers Association of BC. So I've had a couple of different aspects and ways and roles that I've held within, I guess, the industry. I've been a mortgage fulfillment specialist. That's somebody who would review all of the documentation that would be required in order to satisfy the conditions of a mortgage. So mortgage fulfillment. I've been an underwriter. So that's a person who underwrites the file when a mortgage broker sends them the application of the client to say, yeah, they fit, and these are all the parameters of which I need to look at. And the mortgage fulfillment specialist would kind of tick those boxes of those things that are supplied. So I've done that. I've also done audit. So that's auditing and looking at files after or pre-funding to ensure that we're following policy and we've got everything we've needed on the file. I've also went into sales, handling the eastern half of Toronto with Street Capital. So I've been on the sales side for quite some time, and then operational credit management as well, with a couple other startups under my belt over the last couple of years. So I've had some interesting roles within the industry. I gravitate towards sales. I just think I always have had a personality. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy making sense of what they're looking for and providing them education to give them that choice of available options, and maybe even pinpoint a couple of things where, hey, these brokers over here are doing this, maybe applying this to the way you run business. It sounds like it's a fit. Maybe you should talk about maybe a couple of these little aspects with your clients. So I just love being on this side of the business. My other half, my fiance, is also a mortgage broker. So we talk about mortgages all day and all night long. It's a lot of our conversation is about what's happening in the market and clients and things like that. So it provides me a very interesting aspect of what things are going on in the marketplace as well. sales is great. I don't know. I travel a lot. I'm all over Western Canada, assisting brokers and making sure they've got the tools they need and the support they need in order to work with Strive. So that's what I do in a nutshell. If boiling it all down, there's a lot of fun in that too, obviously, because relationships are really important. We all know that as creatures of habit and people who like to have path of least resistance, we're no different in the mortgage community as well. We want to know who we're working with. We want to know that they're trustworthy. We want to know that we can pick up the phone and get some advice from them. So I think having the simplicity of boiling things down to a relationship is a good way to start in the business community, because you have to be trusted in order for you to be able to provide good advice to be reliable.
Well said. What's something that most people don't know about you?
Ooh, good question, actually. I think you know what, I think that a lot of people don't intend to be on the broker side of business. I feel like you had described, or you start your career at CIBC because it's something it's known. Like when you're in high school and you're trying to pick a career, thinking, oh, I want to be upper management at one of these big five banks. But you never really understand the rest of the options available in the community of the finance industry. So I never expected that I'd be here. I didn't know what I wanted to do going out of high school. It was, you pick the jobs that you see other people or your family doing. So I think I ended up stumbling into this role based on purely relationships, and I had the personality that fit and ends up being just relationships. I can't even stress how much that means. And I grew up in this industry. I've been around for a very long time and surround myself with good people like yourself, and makes it enjoyable. So I don't know. I think one thing you don't know about me is I kind of fell into this career. I wasn't intentional, but I love it.
Yeah, I could say the same for myself too. There was no way I was headed for like CIBC frontline. I want to open bank accounts and sell credit cards. Like that wasn't the direction I was thinking. So it's funny how things just sort of like work out based on your network, maybe your life circumstances. Timing's always a big deal.
Huge.
So tied to that, do you have a specific inspiration or somebody or something that inspires you? Obviously, your personality is really outgoing, and I think people can see that. And so, is there something I joke with my wife all the time about how mortgages is just like number crunching, and we're just a bunch of geeks with glasses typing in numbers all day, and but it's really not that. There's a human element to it. There's people associated with it. So sometimes you feel like you do need a little bit of a get up, and usually that's people. But what's yours? What's your inspiration? What drives you?
I would say I have probably two inspirations. One, I would say my dad. My dad is a very loyal individual, and he, like, ever since I was like young, a kid, I've always been driven to do sports. So I played baseball, I played volleyball, I played soccer, I played basketball, I did gymnastics, I did curling, like basically anything to keep me busy. So as a child, my dad was there at every single game that I've ever had. Like, and yes, mom, I love you too. My dad was very business oriented. He was 40 years with the same company, and when he retired, he handed me books and like shelves and shelves and shelves of business books. And it doesn't
Wow.
matter how good your business acumen is. I mean, it does, but it really does matter how good your emotional intelligence is towards people. So I remember as being a teenager, my dad would literally be sitting at a TV table, right, at the watching TV, and it'd be late October, early November, and he's handwriting Christmas cards. He was a general manager of a company called Cooper's Foods, and he started as a, like, stocking shelves, and he was then he was a meat manager. He was a butcher by trade, so was my grandfather. So he would end up being the manager of like the meat department, and he kind of, obviously ended up being a general manager, but he climbed the ladder over that 40 years, and it was because of he put effort into people. So he's handwriting those cards to every single person in every single department within the Cooper's Foods family. That was
Wow.
hundreds of cards, and he would take notes. He'd have in his phone or in a book. Ernie within Kamloops, he was the manager of the Brock Coopers, and he had two kids, Chad and Kelsey, and he would note out these things. He would know what their interests are. So I think
Mm.
for me, it's when he retired, it was really interesting to see how many people were in the room and were connected with him over that 40-year period, and how many of those people he called friends. So that to me is a huge inspiration, something that I've always look up to. Like, love my father. I think he's just an incredible human being. I think everybody who ever met him would say the same thing. So that to me is huge inspiration. There's another inspirational person I find in this industry, and that's Hallie Noble. So
Ah,
she
yeah.
is with Fiskard.
Discard.
So
Yeah.
I've known Hallie, and Fiskard is a private lender, so she does a lot of private lending across the country. But Hallie has done an incredible job because it's a family-run business out of Victoria, British Columbia. And she put her heart and soul into her career across the country. There's probably not one person within this country in the broker space that doesn't know who Hallie is. So, I mean, granted, she's got amazing accomplishments. She's done a lot of community effort. She was, Mortgage Professionals Canada, the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association of BC. She's put a ton into the community and training and mentoring people. But it's interesting because I've known Hallie for a really long time. And I feel like it takes a bit to find your tribe, like you've been around each other for a very long time. And only recently we've been able to connect, and it's amazing. Like, she's been amazing. She's taking me under her wing and be like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And have you thought about this? And it's like, no, I haven't really thought about that. Like, yeah, that's a really good idea. So I think it's finding those people in your community as well, but not forcing it, because like I could have called her a million years ago and be like, I want you to be my mentor, right? It's finding those people who respect through their actions, not necessarily through words. So it's been a lot of me watching her develop the industry over a good portion of time. And I have a ton of respect for her. I love her dearly, and I'm happy to call her a friend.
Man, those are two really good examples. I mean, picking your dad, I mean, that's just like what a great story, right? I mean, that hits really close to home, right? So, and then Hallie, yeah, I mean, if you're in the street, I think you do know Hallie. Certainly if you've been in the broker space for a while. I really like how you sort of tied it back to the human element, because as you're describing your father sort of just handwriting notes, you know, I've been in sales pretty much my whole life, and I always used to think it was about numbers and maybe the way you say things, or understanding the product so well that no one else can even challenge you because you know all the facts, and this is the best product. But as you kind of get older and into the business a bit more, you realize it's really just people. It's people talking to people, and it's people having similar interest in understanding, what, just listening to people and understanding what they really actually need. And that's when it really kind of switched for me. Probably right around the time I was ending my time at CIBC, and you really discover that sales isn't about numbers at all. It's really just about people and getting to know people. And then through those connections, that's where your network starts to grow, and then your sales numbers kind of follow all that stuff. So yeah, I love that. That's those are two really good examples. Now, shifting gears a little bit, when you're not working, how do you spend your spare time? What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I love to golf. So I spend a fair amount of time on the golf course when I'm home. And I mean, obviously there's industry tournaments and things like that as well, but I love to spend time on the golf course. I also have two Nova Scotia duck holding retrievers, one of which I run agility with. So that's like we're not at this level, but it's like
Oh
super
yeah,
dogs at the P&E or the scene.
yeah,
You're seeing them run through tunnels and over jumps and up A-frames and things like that. Let me tell you, it's way harder than it looks. Which Pip is two. So we've been doing it since she was basically from the beginning, just in foundational skills, but it's something that
amazing.
keeps us connected, right? So it's different cues and different body language. And it's interesting how talented and how focused your pets are or your animals are on you, and being able to turn that into something fun together is so rewarding.
Yeah.
So we try to do that as often as we possibly can. Will we compete or be like super dogs? Probably not, but it's something that we really enjoy doing together.
I love it.
There's
Yeah.
nothing better than a tired dog, let me tell you.
Yeah. One of my typical morning routines is having a dog walk with our little puppies, just a Pomeranian. And I kind of need to start my day that way. So I'm just kind of like decompressed right out of the gate, because we have young kids and we have to deal with them in the morning. And then so it's a nice little quiet time. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than a dog. If you're a dog person, I think you just get it. And, not hating on cat people or anything, but Just the loyalty, the obedience, the reward, and then yeah, when they're just passed out. I think my dog's around here sleeping somewhere at the
I just shut the door so mine wouldn't come in. So she'd be in here on
moment.
my lap. She could.
Switching to more sort of specific industry questions here. I want to kind of know who can access Strive as a mortgage lender. So obviously mortgage brokers can access it, but sometimes this is I think it's important just to note for anybody who's listening, if you want to go and get a mortgage at one of the big five banks, you could walk into the bank, you could Google them. It's pretty easy to find, as you mentioned, they spend so much money on it, so you know where they are. But how do people find Strive?
So people find Strive. Well, so I'll start with one thing. And this comes up in conversation on a regular basis because you talk to somebody and they're like, oh, I see my mortgage broker. And they go, oh, who's your mortgage broker with? Maybe I know them. Oh, they're with CIBC or they're with RBC. No. Time out. It's not a mortgage broker. It is a mortgage professional, yes, but they're only selling the person or the institution that they're working for. They're only selling their products. So a mortgage broker is not somebody who works at a bank or flies a banner with a certain brand of a bank. A mortgage broker is somebody who would give you advice on all available options. So your bank, your mortgage finance companies, and then sometimes if you don't qualify for those suite of products, it's your alternative lenders or B lenders like Home Trust and some of those, Equitable Bank. Then you've got your private lenders like your Fiscards, your VWRs. There's a bunch of different private lenders. So first of all, I want to just differentiate between a bank rep and a mortgage broker. So a mortgage broker is who the only people we deal with. So we don't deal with everybody across the country. We deal with offices that have experience, that we have relationship with, and that we've got a really good process of efficiency with. So that's why we're not signed up with everybody across the country. But the only way you have access to Strive is to use a mortgage broker to have access to our products. And some of the things that might make us different comparative to a bank is, I'll use one product as an example, which is a purchase plus improvement program, which has been very popular over the last little while when you have low inventory in the market space. So the idea is that you walk into a house and it's in the catchment or the area that you like, it's close to the school you want for your children. And you walk into this house and you're like, looks good on paper, and you see linoleum flooring, you see you need paint, the baseboards need to be redone, it might need a new roof. But you're seeing all these things that you're like, oh wow, do I really want to live through renos? Can I afford to buy a house and then afford to do all of the improvements on it to make it my dream home? So for us, we have a program that allows you to do purchase plus improvements. So we get quotes for those improvements. The mortgage broker would work with you on that. And we send those through, and we can basically go up to $100,000 worth of improvements on that home and finance that into your mortgage. So, I mean, obviously you want to talk to Mark or other mortgage professionals that have access to our product. There's more details, obviously, that you would need to be aware of, but it's something that's unique to Strive and why people would seek out a mortgage from us compared to the other mortgage finance companies or even your big banks or credit unions.
That's very unique because typically in the purchase plus improvements programs, which a lot of lenders do have, they usually cap it, and I think it's usually 10 or 20% of the value of the home, right? So 100,000 usually it's gonna blow anybody away. So if you want to do the bigger renovations, that's definitely a niche product. I like that. My next question was going to be what is unique about Strive? So maybe I'll change it. So what is Strive's competitive advantage? What makes Strive different in other ways? Or you can even tie this into like, what's the difference between a bank and Strive if you want to, but what makes Strive a little bit unique?
I think we have a really good process in the way that we develop and then look at the files when they come through. So we have an underwriter basically and a mortgage fulfillment specialist built into one individual. So the advantage is that you're not having 2 or 3 different sets of hands in your file and in the decisioning of a file. So it makes everything a lot more streamlined and consistent. Because you can imagine, like if you and I look at the same file, we may have different solutions for that file or slightly different opinions. Right? So the more opinions you have on one item, the more like, I didn't want to do it this way, or I wanted to do it that way, or I don't think this fits, but this fits. Everybody has a unique way of finding solutions. I think for us, we want to make sure that we've got one person looking at your files to have consistency and efficiency. So that makes us a little bit different than somebody else in the market where they have multiple levels of people they have to get through in order to complete your file. So that makes us different. Right now, we are 100% insured and insurable products. So that is a little bit unique to us. We don't do true conventional lending. So that means we don't do refinances. We also do not do purchases over $1 million. A lot of that stuff is coming in our product suite, hopefully through the second quarter of this year. But we're not quite there yet as a new mortgage finance company into the space. So I think our process and the way that we handle and the brokers that we choose to work with is definitely unique here at Strive.
Now, how does technology factor into that? Because I know technology is a big deal with Strive.
So we obviously want your clients to have a visual on their mortgage products once a file closes. So clients do have an online portal they can log into. They could take advantage of their prepayment privileges. They can inquire about turning their adjustable rate mortgage into a fixed rate mortgage, therefore fixing a payment. There's a lot of different options that clients do have a visual on after their mortgage is funded. And we knew that was really important. One thing that we do have in our technology and can continue to expand is there's a submission platform called Finmo. Finmo allows you to send an application through. It also allows you to translate the documentation with that mortgage file into our system. So we're the only lender in Canada working with Finmo that allows that currently. So we're working on different things to give us the edge and the competitiveness to remove steps in the mortgage process in order to have more efficient process for mortgage brokers, but also for their clients. Because if they feel the mortgage broker is super efficient and they're able to close things faster, that will obviously win them more deals from other mortgage brokers in some case, because they don't have access to Strive, but then also real estate agents, because it's really important that they're meeting the condition of financing dates.
That's interesting. So when you talk about Finmo, just so everyone understands, Finmo is a program that only brokers use to submit applications. There's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe more programs out there. And Finmo has definitely been sort of touted as this sort of very techie company. And I've used it myself. So I'm very familiar with that. And I do know that they're really constantly trying to streamline the process. So as documents come in, it goes right to the lender. And people aren't aware right now, or even like take it back to like CIBC days. The process is very cumbersome and long. You know, the client brings me the document, and then I look at the document. If it's a good document, I'll send it through the system. We were faxing documents in, back then, and then somebody picks it up. I don't know where they are, and I don't know how many people are touching that file. And then sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days, and then if it's rejected, it comes back. It's just like this loop of this constant dead time when people just want to know, am I approved or not? And we have to wait. So folks, if you're listening, that is a big reason why Strive is competitive. That's why they use or that's how they use technology, and that's how it can make it more efficient for you and for us as well. I want to throw some interesting stats at you. I want your take on maybe a little bit of a bigger picture. It's just stuff that I pulled off online. I'm a bit of a chart geek, so I'm always charting.
Sure.
And so let me know what you think of these. So debt levels are at all-time highs, basically, which is around $180 of debt per $100 of income. So Canadians, and you could probably argue, you know, Americans and maybe past Europe and all over the world, maybe, that everybody seems to be in debt, and this is a problem. Also in Canada, the housing price index is also at all-time highs. The index is at 124. For some context, it was 109 in 2019. So just in a few years, it's ramped up significantly. And obviously, through COVID and inflation and government spending and things like that, that's changed it. And the last one is inflation, which is currently at 5.2%. It was sort of peaked around 8%, but that's still 33-year highs for inflation. So as I kind of spit these stats out at you, what do you think is the biggest challenge with the mortgage industry right now, sort of from your vantage point?
Ooh, I
I
think
know
the
that's
biggest
loaded.
challenge,
Sorry. Yeah.
it's really loaded because there's a lot of different angles you can look at it. I do have concerns for your first-time home buyers. I think it's really difficult to move into the market. And I don't know about you, but when we went to high school, we weren't really taught much about finances. We're not taught about how to manage our credit. We were not taught about saving for a mortgage and qualifying and what that meant to have down payment and things like that. So for me, I feel like there needs to be way more concentration on getting into high schools and discussing what credit means and how they can manage that. Because we're only known what we taught. So like if your parents are bad with credit, like they're not really going to teach you a way to be able to get into your first home. I
Sure.
do think that if there's anybody listening that has teenagers, I do think that they should go through the exercise with a mortgage broker and talk about finances, talk about what, getting your first credit card looks like and how to manage those payments on time, what that does to your credit rating, and how to keep that credit rating really well until the time you're going to go buy a house, how to save, the methods of saving. To me, I think that is a very underutilized key component to our market, because it's just going to get harder and harder to get into the market as inflation soars. It's moving that benchmark, and then of course qualifying rate is also moving up too. So it's not only getting more difficult to put savings aside, it's getting more difficult as the market is moving to be able to get into your first home. So it's, I think, understanding the challenges there and planning appropriately to be able to buy your first property. I do have, I mean, depends on who you talk to. Like I live in Vancouver. More than 50% of homes in the Lower Mainland are free and clear. So there are a lot of multi-million-dollar homes that are generational wealth that have been owned through, multiple generations, and they bought that house originally in the 70s or 80s or whatnot for, a couple $100,000. Now it's worth, 3, 4, $5 million. So that's kind of where you see like inflation soar. I do feel like those people, in passing on that generational wealth in order to be the bank of mom and dad to help that next generation buy, I think there's an opportunity there as well. So people are sitting on free and clear properties, but they can't afford debt to go with that to be able to help their children get into the market. So I think there's an opportunity there in planning for that. So whether it be early inheritance or transfer of wealth, so then you can see your children benefit from the savings that you've had without incurring that extra debt. So I think there's also something that needs to be thought of in that space as well.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know that 50% of homes in Vancouver were free and clear. That seems like wildly high, right? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So, what about other markets like an Edmonton market or Ottawa market or something where home prices are still very affordable, but all the same outside issues are sort of still present? I mean, obviously, you could you could probably say that let's use Edmonton. That's where I'm from. So my hometown, Edmonton. If you look at the house price index or like the average home price, it's been affordable forever. It's still affordable. It ticked up with COVID maybe 10%, but like it was nowhere near Vancouver, Toronto, or the bigger markets. So if debt levels are still at all time highs, and home prices are generally considered to be high, I think the common theme in the market is that it's a supply issue. There's never enough homes for sale, and the demand with all the immigration, and now immigration's ramping up even more. Even more people are coming into Canada, and that's even boosting up the house prices. So I love what you said about education, because man, if we just fix that part, if we just implement, I don't know what you call it, like banking 101 in grade 10 or something. Imagine the differences by grade 12, how people would come out of there going into university and start preparing for home ownership instead of just preparing to be in debt. It just seems backwards. So,
I
would
remember
you?
being at university and being dragged in, like there's all kinds of credit card companies that were on campus. And they're like, get a
Oh,
$5,000 credit card, right? And they drag
yeah,
you in. It's like, okay, it's great. You pay
yeah,
for books and then you can go and party with your friends. I mean, you don't really understand what that means at that moment to manage that credit for the rest of your life,
yeah.
right? Like something as simple. I can't even tell you how many people I've seen at the age of 21 go bankrupt for $10,000.
That's
Right?
nuts.
It's credit is, I mean, yes, credit can be used very well to be able to achieve, building businesses. Like you do need credit. And I would suggest you get credit as early as you can, but managing that credit, making sure that it's under 50% utilized. Don't use that credit card unless you can pay it off at the end of the month, or if you have a plan to pay it off in the near future. Carrying that credit card debt for long periods of time is not a good thing. Your credit score is based on your utilization, how long you're utilizing that credit, and then your on-time payments. So, and obviously credit seeking too. Like sometimes you look at a credit bureau and you've seen somebody been at 10, 12 different institutions and within a year to look for alternative credit. When banks or mortgage finance companies are looking at that, The judgment is there. How often are you seeking credit? Why are you seeking credit? What types of credit are you seeking? And then all that goes towards your character. So I know kind of off topic, but I mean, Edmonton doesn't have the ebbs and flows or the wild swings like Toronto or Vancouver does as major urban markets. I think Calgary and Edmonton are very safe places to buy homes because you're not going to have that wild swing of appreciation and depreciation. It's a great investment. So getting into home ownership as soon as you possibly can within those markets, I think is definitely key. And it's a lot more affordable. And I mean, Calgary and Edmonton are booming too, like lots of infrastructure. They're not just oil and gas cities anymore.
Especially Calgary. Yeah.
And I mean, there's lots of opportunities there. So we're seeing a lot of immigration, not only people coming from outside of the country living here, we're seeing a lot of people immigrating from Toronto to Calgary or Vancouver to Edmonton. There's a lot of people coming into the province of Alberta from all different provinces across the country at a higher rate than we've ever seen before. And it's mainly based on affordability.
Yeah. Do you think that the banks are a little bit at blame for part of the problem of the debt problem? Do you think that it's too easy to get credit? They're pushing credit cards. Is that something that they need to be a little bit more accountable for, you know?
Hard to tell. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's nice to have the ability to have credit. Whether you should be using it to fund your lifestyle is another thing. So that's why, I mean, yes, you could get credit, but I mean, if you're making $30,000 at McDonald's, no offense to anybody working at McDonald's, right? That type of level of debt is not necessarily going to be available for you. So, I mean, the way that you can draw in debt is based on if you're going to school, obviously there's debt to be able to go to school, right? There's credit cards you can apply for or vehicles you can buy. You can get yourself in trouble regardless of your income level. But yeah, I mean, our consumer debt is quite high based on the percentage of income to each individual in the country. I don't really have much of an opinion on that. Are the banks to blame? I mean, yeah, it's a way for them to make a ton of money. Your interest rate on your credit cards on a monthly basis. Like I always ask clients, why do you think you know that who Scotiabank is? Because you're paying for it. Your credit cards, your mortgages,
bank
your banking
fees.
fees, like they're making a lot of money off of you. So don't, I mean, it's not free when they entice you with free banking. I mean, the other advantage of using a mortgage finance company is we're not selling you all those peripheral products. So like, I can't even tell you, I bank with Scotiabank, I bank with RBC. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls. Hey, Tiffany, you're eligible for another credit card, or you're eligible to increase your line of credit, or, have you thought about this insurance? Strive doesn't offer all those peripheral products. So we're not going to be hounding you for all these extras that are available. So I don't know, it's something to think about as well.
That's a nice sales pitch right there. I like that one. Because everybody deals with that, right? Everybody knows that what comes with that. So I want to ask you about what you're seeing from a product standpoint. So I don't know how closely you see the files, but I know you have the data and stuff. So what are most people picking right now in terms of product, whether that's a fixed or variable or term length or a specific type of is it purchase plus, whatever? What do you kind of see on your end?
Ooh, so it's kind of all over the map. I mean, we've always been really popular as an institution for stated income or clients who are newly BFS. So there is a program that we offer that very few other institutions offer, and it's called an enhanced business for self-enhanced program. So this is an exception-based program for exceptional individuals that are caught in a situation where they're in between products. So I'm going to use an example of BC Hydro. So you've had somebody who's been an engineer with BC Hydro and they've been there for a lot of years. And all of a sudden they're going contract with BC Hydro. So they're employed, but self-employed via contract with BC Hydro. So if you've not been doing as business for self for 2 years or more, there's very few options for you to be able to get financing because you're fitting in between products. So this enhanced program is built for those individuals who have long job tenure within a certain industry as a professional and have recently gone business for self contract within that same employer. So kind of a loophole program. We do a lot of them. Obviously you need really good credit. You need low debt utilization, you need good tenure, and you need to be a professional. But those types of things we see quite a bit of because, again, not very many institutions offer that as a solution. As far as a term goes, it comes down to affordability based on benchmark rate and getting into the market. For a portion of time there, we were seeing a ton of adjustable rate mortgages because it was your affordability of getting into the market was outweighing the payment, so to speak, on the mortgage. So there's a lot of people picking that, whether it be right or wrong, based on the product that was going to be well suited for them. We saw a lot of that, but now I'm thinking we are seeing a lot more fixed. So it's between a 5-year fixed, which is obviously the most popular here in Canada. But we're starting to see some shorter term options as well. So your 3 and 4 years, we're starting to see those pick up popularity as well.
Interesting. What is one tip you'd give Canadians looking to enter the housing market this year or next year?
Talk to a mortgage broker would be my biggest tip. And it's never too early, and don't be scared. Like, you obviously, as a mortgage broker, you have to be approachable, you have to be relatable. It's providing them that information that they can work towards. You don't have to be perfect to buy a house. Don't think that everything needs to be like, all your ducks need to be in a row and everything needs to be perfect. There is a mortgage broker that helps you do all of those things so that you can be eligible to buy your first home. So I wouldn't come like embarrassed about any past credit issues. There's coaching around that. They can help you fix it. Maybe it was a blip on your credit and it, shouldn't have been there. So there's solutions that can be provided for every client. It's just planning. If you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? So seeing a mortgage broker, I think, is your best path forward to ensure that you're getting into a product that is best suited for you. You're getting into a home that is affordable, and that it's going to be suited for you in the long-term plan. Because just getting into the market is different than staying in the market long-term. So make sure you see a mortgage broker for your best mortgage advice.
Good plug. Thank you. Well, and you're right, because you have enough to do anyways. There's a million things to do when you're buying a home, right? There's the moving process, there's utility hookups, there's, all the subscriptions, your job. Like, there's just so much to do. Like, now you're going to try and shop the market yourself when you're not really accustomed to understanding all of the different options out there. Just call us and we'll help you. Plus, if you do have banged up credit or something, there's solutions for that as well on the alternative side. So
100%.
you're never going to get that at the bank. It's going to be a no, see you, and then you think your journey's over. Whereas it could just be, well, let's try this for a year, or you just need to wait 6 months. There's a plan involved, I think, and that's the funnest part
100%.
about my job. Yeah, thank you for that
And
plug.
the one thing I also say is you can't win at both the bank and the tax office. So those of you who are business for self and you are very tax efficient, you may not necessarily qualify for A-type products or rates, but if it's a higher rate, you're still often in a better position, paying less than the government and paying a higher interest rate to get into home ownership. So don't feel like, you're talking to somebody on the other side of the fence and they've got a 4.69 on a 5-year and you're sitting somewhere closer to a 7. Yeah, but you've paid less money overall because you're paying less taxes. You might be paying a higher interest rate, but that should not be reflective of the quality of your mortgage. So just keep that in mind, because you can't win, again, at the tax office and at the bank.
That's right. Last question for you. Broader, kind of a vague question, but where do you kind of see specifically the mortgage industry in the next, 5 years, 10 years? Obviously, a company like Strive, who's pretty new into the game, it seems like there are more MFCs coming into this space. And it definitely seems like more people, based on polls and things, are starting to work with mortgage brokers. It's not clear cut. I think mortgage brokers are less than 50%. I think that people still traditionally go to the banks, but a shift is coming. So that's what I see. What do you kind of see? And you can speak to whatever area you'd like to within regards to the mortgage industry. What do you see happening?
See, I think that you'll see less mortgage finance companies being launched in this type of environment and more amalgamations. So like when I entered the space, there was far more lenders available, and they just continue to get bought out or closed. Like we use the example of First Line. First Line was a monster mortgage option and lender that was a division of CIBC. Well, they ended up disappearing, I think, in 2000 and I would say 10, maybe. But you'll see some amalgamations, like Street Capital we talked about earlier is one of my former employers, and I was there for a good portion of time. They went from a mortgage finance company to get their bank license, which made them super attractive to other institutions for that bank license. So RFA ended up buying Street Capital. So there's been a ton of amalgamations over a big portion of time. I don't think I see that slowing down. I still think there'll be likely amalgamations. I do foresee some banks coming back into our space, which are not currently here, but once were. So like keep an eye on that. I think you'll see some other options, but I think it will be the big banks that are starting to come back to play within in the broker space. But yeah, I don't see many mortgage finance companies being launched in today's environment, which makes us unique. But we also do have a ton of history behind us. So it might be a new brand, but the people behind our company have been around for a very long time in the industry, as well as our investor. So very secure. We have uniqueness where because we have that relationship, you're not having to escalate exceptions outside of our four walls to ensure that you're getting even more efficiency. So that's where I kind of see the mortgage industry coming. I think it will get more competitive. You see rates kind of all over the place. And one thing that I would say to a consumer is, for whatever reason, you see a cheaper rate out there, your friends are talking to you, or you're seeing something on the internet, make sure you talk to your mortgage broker about what you're seeing in the market space. Those lower rates sometimes come with restrictions. So it may not necessarily be the best option for you. So it's not all apples to apples. It's apples, oranges to pears. So making sure
Yeah.
you're asking lots of questions of your mortgage broker, and not, I mean, if you're going to shop. But at the same time, your mortgage broker shops for you. So they'll present you with several options of what is available in the market space, and then you get to choose which is right for you.
I saw an ad, speaking of online rates, recently, and it was an incredibly low interest rate, like very low. I think it was like something like, I don't know, call it 2.5 or 3%. And I was like, hey, given the environment, that's just a really good rate. So then as I started looking into it, it was just a 6-month rate. And then after the 6 months, the rate flips to today's rate. So, these sneaky little ads that are pulling people in with super low rates, and they're saying, well, I can afford that. But can you afford the real rate in 6 months' time, when it
Yeah.
goes from 3% to 5%, or whatever the rate happens to be? So yeah, give us a call. We'll walk you through the process. Um, Thank you, Tiffany. I love all your responses to my questions. I want to end the call with something I call the speed round. This is just a fun way to sort of end it. It's not too serious. And it's
Okay.
just a fun way to kind of just kind of get your take on a few things. Okay.
Sure.
Let's start with the first one here. So, and you can give an explanation, or you don't have to. You can just say yes or no. First one is a house or condo.
House.
It's cuz.
No hesitancy. I don't know. You control your own space. You don't have to smell your neighbor's cooking. You don't have to hear other people's toilets flushing. I don't know. You have to get into the market somehow. So there's nothing wrong with a condo, but house for sure.
House for you. Are you a lift weights girl or a running girl? What do you
Ooh,
prefer?
lift weights.
Weights?
Wait, all day. Yeah.
Like to throw the weights around, hey? Okay.
Yeah.
Sugar or salt?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Salt.
Ah, okay.
Salt
My
and
wife
vinegar chip, my weakness.
must
Mistake.
be a Tiffany thing, because my wife is loves the salt as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
Beer or wine?
Ooh, well, I'm beer. I don't discriminate, but beer.
Good. Okay. Morning or evenings?
Morning. I'd much rather
BMW.
enjoy a coffee quiet than, I don't know, what, drink wine or beer at night. I'm definitely a day drinker.
So does that mean because you're a morning person that you go to bed early, or are you also a night owl? Okay, you're both.
Yeah, it depends. So my other half is a night owl. So there's got to be a happy medium somewhere, or I just never see him. So a little bit of both, but it depends on the timing.
BMW or Mercedes?
Ooh. So I currently drive a Mini, which is a Countryman plug-in. So, but I've had two Mercedes in the past. I don't know. I'll go Mini. I'll go BMW because it's Mini.
Okay. I have this same question I'm asking everybody. I think you're my fourth guest here, and I'm starting to see trends here on which way lean. And mostly it's Mercedes, which is interesting, but who cares? Where is your favorite vacation spot?
Ooh. See, I love to travel. My heart, I think, is in Costa Rica. We were there
Really?
during the pandemic. We were sitting around with a group of friends, and we all looked at each other, and we all owned our own businesses at the time. This is prior to Strive. And we looked at each other and said, what are we all doing here working in a box? We can't
Yeah.
see anybody. We can't go into offices. Why don't we do that somewhere way nicer than here? So there was a few of us that went to Salt Spring, or we were in Salt Spring discussing this, and we went to Costa Rica for a little over 3 months. So we traveled across the Pacific side, rented a couple Airbnbs, but it gave us the opportunity, A, to work remote, but B, have an adventure at the same time. So everything there was open air. It was super comfortable, and we've been back since. So I love myself. Costa Rica it is beautiful. The people are beautiful, and it's super relaxing and full of adventure.
Oh, I can't wait to go. I've been hearing such great things. We have friends that are there right now as well. It's definitely been on my list. Do you think it's a place that you can take kids?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So there's the thing about Costa Rica is it doesn't have a lot of all inclusives. So you have to be like, it's not a place that you go and sit on a beach chair for a week or two. You
Yeah,
could, and you
right.
can find those. I mean, the people that we went with had two kids, 15 and 2, big age gap, right? So we were
Wow.
able to keep both of them busy in different, unique things. So I mean, if you want adventure
For
and you
all
don't
age
sit still,
groups.
then absolutely do it. 100%.
Do you like sports?
Yes.
Who's your favorite sports team?
Ooh, loaded. See, I used to follow a lot of hockey. I'm from Kamloops, so go Blazers. Um, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence right now. I used to be a crazy Habs fan. A lot of respect for Carey Price and love that team. And now I don't watch as much TV. I'm not as home as much, but go sports. I don't know.
So hockey mainly, I'm hearing.
Hockey, yeah.
Okay. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Would it still be Costa Rica?
You know what's funny? I probably I wouldn't live there long term. It's a challenge to live there based on there's just comforts here that you cannot get there.
Of course,
Whether it
yeah.
be food or certain things they don't ship, they don't have addresses, so shipping things is really difficult. Beautiful place, but I could live there full time, maybe 3, 6 months a year. That's probably about it. But I truthfully would probably live in Calgary. If I could live anywhere
Calgary.
else, yeah, I would probably live like partly in Calgary and maybe somewhere else in the world. But yeah, I Calgary's really grown on me over the past little while. I've been spending a lot of time there, and I love winter. We don't really get winter here in Vancouver. I
Okay.
love space. We're in Langley, almost Aldergrove. We're just shy of 2 acres, and have some very lovely neighbors. But yeah, I'm not for crowded spaces. So land would be absolutely amazing.
That's very interesting hearing a Vancouver girl wanting to live in Calgary.
So
Usually I think it's the
I'm
opposite.
not from here. So I grew up in Kamloops. I moved to Vancouver for a year. I lived in Toronto for 8 years. I moved back to Vancouver area, and now I'm in Langley. But yeah, I think Calgary, with the space and the ability to get into the mountains quickly, and then the ability to get downtown quickly. You have kind of all of the things that I love in a very, like, you don't have to drive that far. Here, if you want to get to the mountains, you're either driving to Whistler, which is radically crowded, or you're driving to Sun Peaks or Kelowna or something like that, which is 3.5 hours. So, I mean, you could go to Kananaskis, you could go to Banff, you could go to Jasper, you could go to Kicking Horse. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
different places within a short period of time to get up on the slopes. So I love to snowboard as well. I just don't get to do it as often as I want.
It is a nice special place, and the downtown is incredible too. The architecture, the vibe, the energy. We're in Victoria right now from Edmonton, and it's funny whenever we go to Calgary for something, and we get like through the gates, and you like feel that airport energy. It just hits us all the time because we're in like sleepy Victoria with like nearly dead or newlywed. So it's totally has a good energy to it. I see that. What music are you listening to these days? Favorite genres,
Wow.
bands, songs?
So my favorite band is City and Color.
Mm,
I've
good
seen
one.
them live, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. Yeah, they just, that's what I play most.
Anything City and Color. Okay. Do you have a favorite movie?
You're gonna laugh. There's two favorite movies. Gangs of New York, I think, is
Yeah.
amazing. Daniel Day-Lewis is radically talented. And then if you know me, this will make sense. But Dumb and Dumber.
That's wonderful. That's definitely
It's
my
just
top three.
silly. Yeah, Dumb and Dumber is just every time you watch it, you find something different based on life experience. I don't know. It's so stupid, but it's absolutely my humor. So
Oh,
love
it's
it.
hilarious. It's a classic. You could probably throw in a couple Will Ferrell movies in there as well, but Dumb and Dumber, Jim
Yeah,
Carrey, Jeff Daniels, that's yeah, good one. I like that. Last couple ones here. If you could grow up in any decade, which would it be?
50s.
Really?
Yeah.
50s, 50s. So that's
Yeah.
like the
Well, post war, things were getting to be
Industrial Revolution-ish, right? I
Yeah,
think.
it's either the 50s or I mean, I'm an 80s baby. So I mean, if I was a teenager in the 80s, that would have been absolute blast. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
the 50s, I think it's just very simple. Like, I don't know, I grew up in a house where, dad would come home for dinner and dinner would be ready and mom would greet him with a hug. And it was a very simple life. And the
Mhm.
50s is just very simple. I don't know. I mean, people have different opinions, women's rights, all that stuff, fine. But like, I love to cook. I love to be in the kitchen. Give me a recipe, I'll tear it apart and rebuild it and add definitely more garlic. So I think the 50s. I mean, minus the heels. I don't think I'd wear the heels in the kitchen, but
Mm. No. Well, I mean, you could set a trend. Maybe go back in time and wear flats or something. But you're
right?
right. Very simple time. Like, think of how complicated life is right now. And I was talking with my wife, my Tiffany, about this, and it was like, do you remember what our life was like pre-COVID? Just a couple years ago, how it seemed like there weren't that many issues, or maybe I was being ignorant to it, but it seemed like life was sort of, just chugging along. And then COVID happened. And then it seems like now there's so many different issues, and rightfully so in some regards that things need to be talked about. But what a change in 2 years. They talk about the Great Reset. If you go back to the 50s, I mean, there's going to be other challenges and issues, but I do
Oh, for
feel like it
sure.
would be a very simple time. I like that answer. Last question for you. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Ooh. That's a loaded question. I don't really know. It's like I would like to know the
Top of your
truth
head.
about it.
Top of your
But at the
head.
same time, it's like if you know the truth about everything, would anybody else believe you? So I don't really
You would
know.
have that power though, so you could just like Jedi mind tricks or something. I don't know.
Right?
I'm sorry, I have one last one for you.
Sure.
I skipped this one, but this is one of my favorite ones. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Hmm. My grandmother.
Really? Is she like your
Yep.
dad?
So this is my mom's mom. She passed away when I was 6. And from what I remember of her, I have a lot of really cool and unique memories of her. In my short time that I was alive, obviously not to spend time with her, but she was definitely a woman where she would make something out of nothing. Whatever was in the cupboard, she'd whip out the most amazing meals. She made everything fun. She would just plot me in the garden in a mud pit and with a hose and they go for it. She would rip a $2 bill in half and hand it to my sister and I, and we'd go to the corner store and buy candy. Like, she was just so free spirited, and I don't know. I would love to, absolutely. And I think our family would be radically different if she was still alive. So I would want to have dinner with her in an absolute heartbeat.
That's nice. That's sweet. Where can people find Strive? I already hit on this, but I'd like to end it because
Yeah.
in case they just want to learn about Strive, not necessarily get a mortgage right away, where are the different ways they can find you guys?
So through a mortgage broker is obviously the best avenue to be able to have access to us. But if they're looking to research something, they can always go to strivecapital.ca. You can see our available products. You can see our whole team, which is super talented. I'm biased, but I think we have the most talented group of individuals working for our company. We've cherry picked them very intentionally. So I definitely think our team is the biggest reason why Strive has been able to be so successful in such a short period of time. It always comes down to people. So
Thank you so
strivecapital.ca.
thank you so much for doing this today.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It was fun. So thank you.